Again, this is Don Swan. I'd like to welcome everyone to the Red Spur webinar. Ocean Springs with me, Steve Simpia, our Sea Grant Deputy Director, Loretta, who's our Research Coordinator, and I'm Seymour, who's our Fiscal Officer. All contacts are listed in the RFP. What I'd like to cover in the next hour or ever how long it takes is just to give you a quick overview of the RFP, our eSeaGrant, which you will need to use if you submit a proposal to the request, and answer some questions that we've received already, as answer any other questions that people who are on the webinar might have. So go ahead, and you're all muted, by the way, and we'll unmute you when we get to the point of questions. Begin with the RFP, and I'll start with the dates first. 11 is due on April 7th. The instructions for that letter of intent are in the RFP. I'll talk briefly about that in a second. The full proposals are then due on June 9th. Applications of funding decisions by September 1 of 2017, with starting the project on October 1 of 17, with a 2-year project period which would end September 30th of 19. So the dates that, if you submit a proposal, you might want to print out and put on your wall. A little background, it's all in the RFP, but we're looking at a 2-year project period. The fund we have available is $9.5 million in federal funding. That's a combination of money from NOAA Fisheries, as well as the National Sea Grant Office. As part of the mandate for Sea Grant funding, there's a $2.5 million. There will be a $2.5 million non-federal match on this. So the total project funding will be $12 million when you include that match. Eligibility, there's a second RFP about eligibility. Guys would need to be from institutions of higher education from a Gulf of Mexico state. COPIA can be from anywhere within the Gulf. They could be local, state, fishermen, other federal agencies from the Gulf of Mexico region or outside as well. Intent, directions are in the RFP, but need a project title, the names and affiliations of all investigators, and then a page abstract of what you propose to do. Again, that is due by 5 p.m. Central Daylight Time, April 7th, and you need to email those to Louis. Okay. Parts of the RFP is going to be that what we're looking for, and again, if you're not familiar with how we got to phase 2, I'll give you a little bit of background. We convened a meeting in January of 2000. And we gathered 65 or 70 scientists, resource managers, rock assessment experts from outside the region, groups, environmental fishing NGOs. 2 days in New Orleans where we talked about the need and how we would go about implementing a program like that. Led us to a phase 1, which was to put around $500,000 towards developing experimental designs, which we then could use in developing the phase 2 RFP. And that's what we see in the RFP. The design guidelines include geographic areas and sampling depths, habitat types, fishing industries, and then the sampling methods. The criteria that we'll be using for proposals that we receive will be the following: percent towards rationale, scientific and professional merit is going to count half of the overall evaluation, and that's 50%. Its benefits, 15%. Engagement with end users, participants, and co-sponsors, 10%. And then investigator qualifications is 15% of the review. The way we go about doing reviews, we'll get 2 to 3 external reviewers, merit reviews, where we'll send those proposals to people who are qualified to do reviews. We'll give them 2 weeks to 3 weeks to conduct those reviews. Those can be paired with 2 technical reviews from our technical review panel, which we will convene. So every proposal will get 4 or 5 reviews, and that's what we then will use working with technical review panel to make funding recommendations. Moving on to just the eSeaGrant online project management system that we now use. We began using it with their own internal Sea Grant RFP. It's working very well. If you have used eSeaGrant for Mississippi and Alabama, then you're going to need to register. You will submit a proposal. There will be documents, templates for budgets, for example, or other things that you can download off the site. You can put those and then upload into eSeaGrant. It's pretty straightforward. In addition to those documents that you would upload, there's going to be online editable forms that you would do. And see the instructions for eSeaGrant. If you read Snapper page on our Mississippi Alabama Sea Grant website, specifically if you went to the RFP, there's a link that will take you to the more detailed instructions for eSeaGrant. I'm going to have one more slide on eSeaGrant. Just want to make sure you understand that you need to register first, and it's not only the PI. Any of the co-PIs will all need to register. You will log in, and it would be to your advantage to complete relevant to your profile, like your address, those sorts of things, because then we'll auto-populate many of the other fields that are required. So that's an advantage of eSeaGrant. Details, only the PI, and there will be a PI and then several PIs, will be able to access and submit the proposal. If you've done multiple proposals, and we'll get that later, then you need to register and complete one profile. As far as the specific things that I wanted to cover with everyone on the webinar about the RFP and also our eSeaGrant. Released the RFP on March 19th. We've had several questions from people who are interested in the RFP. So what I'd like to do now is to walk through those questions and provide answers to them, and then open it up to anyone who has other questions that we'll try to answer either online or follow up in written response form. First question that these are not in the order that I received them. There was a question asked about how many proposals can a PI serve on, and the answer is there's not a limit. So if you want to participate in 2, 3, 4, whatever is submitted, there is no restriction on that. A question asked by several people, and it's about the depletion method. What we did was to take the input from the indicators, the 6 projects that we funded under Phase 1, as well as cross-walk with the input from our 4 technical experts on stock assessment that we brought in. It was a conclusion that maybe the depletion method was a better method. Understand that it's not the only method, and we also understand that any method's going to have its strengths and weakness. I think the wording was depletion method coupled to a mark recapture. Question was, does it have to be only the depletion method? The answer is no. But a follow-up question is, whatever method that a PI chooses or a team chooses to use, you have to test the sampling assumptions for method, whether it's mark recapture or the depletion method. If you choose not to use the depletion method, you have a better method that you want to use, mark recapture, for example, then have to stand the test of the peer review process. So that first question is, it doesn't have to be only the depletion method. It's a decision that you will make, and then it will be evaluated based on peer. Another question is, can Sea Grant be involved in outreach? There is a component of the RFP that speaks directly to engaging throughout the entire process with the fishing industries, providing them updates. When this RFP was put together, that was never the intent. So the answer is that Mississippi, Alabama will not be involved because we're managing the program. It's going to be, we will provide routine communication support that that we'll send out. I'm sure we'll work with NOAA's Fisheries Communications as well to make sure that information that the PIs that want out to the public, we can assist in that. Or a deeper dive into that outreach with other Sea Grant programs. I think that's a decision that the project team will have to make in concert with whatever Sea Grant program you're interested in working with. Question about match. I mean, there would be, if you go for the full amount, there would be a $2.5 million match requirement. Just things that I'm familiar with as far as counting as non-federal match would be salaries for non-federal employees, the waived indirect cost on that, documentable support from project partners, boat time, and other sources. I think we're provide as much latitude as we can to non-federal match. And so it may not be just one type of non-federal match that you use. It could be a multiple type match. I was asked, with the Gulf Marine Fisheries, are they eligible to be the lead PI on a proposal? And I think the intent of Congress was for this money to be work to be conducted by university scientists. The answer is the PI would be from a university. However, there is a category in there where we ask for a two-page description of how the overall project would be managed, coordinated. I think that's an example where the Gulf States Marine Fisheries Commission could be involved if the teams decides to work with them on that. Someone asked about genetic tagging and fish health. The decision for not including genetic tagging and fish health was really a funding decision. We do recognize the value over the term of a new technology like genetic tagging and certainly the fish surveys. So we do require sampling tissues, samples, and archive for genetic work be collected. And I think how you might deal with genetic tagging or another component could be and should be included in the two-page supplement that request on how you might use how the team might use an additional $10 million in FY fiscal year 2017 appropriations. I have no idea whether there will be $10 million. You're probably aware there's a proposed budget cuts. So I have an answer on how certain anyone is about an additional $10 million. We do give you the opportunity to provide a two-page supplement on how you would use an additional $10 million. That's outside the narrative part of the proposal. Yep. As far as the questions we receive right now, we're going to take everyone off mute, and we'll be happy to try to answer any questions that you might have. We have a question. We have the lines open. I'll open up the normal speaking. You can type in a question. We'll try to answer it that way as well.
Well, and this is Greg Stuns. I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
On the match component, obviously that's going to be a big question for a lot of us. I didn't hear you say in kind, or maybe didn't hear it, or do you know is that type of match eligible? You mentioned boat time, but there'll be some heavy equipment needs, scientific gear type things that a lot of us have. Are those going to be eligible for that $2.5 million requirement?
I mean, I'm going to turn to Amanda. I kind of use in kind. I'm not exactly sure what that.
Yeah, as long as it can be documented, from a third party or pretty much as long as it can be documented, then yes, you can, and it's on federal, it's allowed.
Yeah. Okay, good. All right, thank you.
Very good. Another question. I know you have questions. If you don't like to ask them right now, we feel free to get in touch with Amanda or me about any questions you have. And if you don't have one right now, you may have one as you start developing your proposal.
Well, on this Benny Galloway, so you may get to my questions. So the only scientists qualified are university-based.
PI, Benny.
Got you. As I. Okay.
Open anyone.
Don, this is Greg Stuns again. If no one else has a question, I do have another one for you, and it relates to your comment about the Gulf states. And, of course, as you know, I'm assembling a group to respond to this RFP. And Dave Donaldson, we have had some discussions, and so I was wondering about the comment regarding what would you guys see as their role? You know, we were looking at perhaps maybe they might facilitate some management and liaison and perhaps contractual type things among all of us around the Gulf. But I didn't know if you guys had anything in mind, or is that up to us, or do you have any recommendations or suggestions about what role that group might be able to play in this?
No, don't, and honestly, I want to leave it up to the teams to come up with what they think is the best strategy on how you might engage with not only other scientists or other agencies, but also someone like the commission. You know, I'm sure y'all can figure that out. To get to a specific question, though, you know, make sure, you know, don't hesitate to ask. Don't have any preconceived ideas on how to work. We do know, and I think everyone who's been following this understands that this, you know, I use the word unprecedented. Maybe it's not. Even if it's unprecedented, it's large scale and it's very complex. I think we recognize that. And there's a lot of, and geographically, it's a huge area. So those are things that I think we all recognize. It's a matter of how you overcome some of those challenges associated with something at this scale.
Okay, thanks.
One question that people haven't asked, and I'm kind of thinking right now, if you to engage with as a co-PI or a collaborator for a federal agency, I don't think that they have to accept any salary for them. They term that with NOAA Fisheries. Steve's looking at the RFP. Does it say that? Federal partners may, yeah, we took care of that. So federal partners can participate, but they would be uncompensated collaborators. Uncompensated meaning salaries.
I have a question about that, but just confirming, but that does not count as match, right?
Now that'd be federal against federal, so it wouldn't, unfortunately, would not count as match.
Okay. Thanks.
Questions? Our contact information, you know, we're here to help. You know, we know there are a lot of creative people out there in terms of how they build those teams and how they engage with other partners and deal with something that's scale. We're here to support you. Make sure that we identify the best available chance to do this work.